A call that changed everything. Under Iranian fire, the UAE reached out to Netanyahu, and something unprecedented followed. Israel's Iron Dome was deployed beyond its borders. But the real story isn't just about what worked. It's about who got help and who didn't. When Iran began bombarding the United Arab Emirates with missiles and drones in the early days of the war, Abu Dhabi made a call that would have been unthinkable not long ago, to Jerusalem. According to multiple Israeli and US officials cited by Axios, UAE President Mohammed bin Zayed rang Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu seeking help. Netanyahu's response was to order the IDF to deploy an Iron Dome battery, along with several dozen soldiers to operate it, to the Emirates. It was the first time Israel had ever sent the system to another country, and the first time it had been used operationally outside of the US or Israel. Iran had thrown everything it had at the UAE. Official Emirati figures put the barrage at around 550 ballistic and cruise missiles and more than 2,200 drones. The volume was simply overwhelming, and the Iron Dome, for all its reputation, could not hold the line entirely. Some missiles broke through, striking both military and civilian targets across the country. 11 people were reported killed, and 188 suffered injuries in the course of 40 days. Damage was reported as far as Palm Jumeirah in Dubai. The system intercepted dozens of Iranian missiles, Israeli officials confirmed. But against a barrage of that scale, interception rates that would be considered a success in other theaters still left the UAE absorbing real hits. The Israeli Air Force also conducted strikes on short-range missile positions in southern Iran to reduce the volume of fire reaching the Gulf. An acknowledgement, perhaps, that the dome alone was not enough. Saudi Arabia, the West's biggest ally, however, got no such system, despite also coming under Iranian fire. Riyadh has made clear that normalization with Israel remains conditional on meaningful progress toward a Palestinian state. That political gap, even amid a common enemy, was enough to keep the Iron Dome out of Saudi hands. The contrast is hard to miss. Two Gulf neighbors, both targeted by Iran, both broadly aligned with the West, and yet one received Israel's most prized air defense system, while the other was left to fend for its own. Apparently in the Middle East, who you call in a crisis still depends on the deals you have made before it started. A major shift is unfolding in global defense ties as Israel moves to cut off military procurement from France, once one of its closest partners amid growing tensions over the war with Iran. In a decision that marks a dramatic break from decades of cooperation, Israel has announced it will halt all defense purchases from France. The move comes as Israeli officials accuse Paris of adopting a hostile stance, particularly during a period of heightened conflict in the region. Major General Amir Bahram, Director General of Israel's Ministry of Defense, confirmed the decision in a televised statement.
The decision was part of a broader effort to reduce cooperation with countries that take steps against Israel. The government would instead rely on the local defense industry and suppliers in friendly countries.
The announcement follows a series of disagreements between the two countries. On March 31st, France declined to allow Israeli-bound aircraft carrying American military supplies to pass through its airspace. The decision drew criticism from Donald Trump, who publicly accused France of being unhelpful during a critical phase of the conflict. Israeli officials have also pointed to broader concerns, including France's support for calls at the United Nations for an arms embargo on Israel, its recognition of a Palestinian state in September 2025, and restrictions placed on Israeli firms participating in defense exhibitions in Paris. Meanwhile, French officials have expressed regret over the decision, but downplayed its consequences. A spokesperson for the French Ministry of Armed Forces stated that exports of offensive weaponry to Israel had already been significantly reduced since 2024.
France's policy is guided by international law and the need to prevent escalation in the region. Our decisions on arms exports and airspace use are made on a case-by-case basis, in line with our commitments and humanitarian principles.
Data from French parliamentary reports shows that authorized dual-use exports to Israel fell sharply to around $88.8 million in 2024, marking a significant decline from previous levels. On the issue of airspace, the Élysée Palace clarified that there is no blanket ban on US military flights and that requests are reviewed individually. For Israel, French betrayal is nothing new. In 1967, Charles de Gaulle abruptly imposed a total arms embargo on Israel during the Six-Day War, refusing to deliver 50 Mirage 5 jets for which Israel had already fully paid. A traumatic rupture that forced Jerusalem to build its own indigenous aerospace industry from scratch. The breakdown in defense ties comes at a time when France is also facing internal challenges within its own military programs. The country will now bear the full cost of developing the Rafale F-5 fighter jet after a planned co-financing agreement with the United Arab Emirates collapsed. The dispute centered on access to sensitive technologies, particularly in the field of optronics, which Paris refused to share, leading Abu Dhabi to withdraw from the partnership. Initially, Abu Dhabi had been ready to contribute up to 3.5 billion euros to a program estimated at around 5 billion euros. The collapse of negotiations now leaves France bearing the full cost, with expected delays in development and delivery. Analysts also suggest that UAE may have calculated that siding with friend Israel by cutting the deal with Paris keeps Tel Aviv happy, avoiding any optics of European pressure on Israeli tech transfers, was worth more than the strategic deepening ties. The Rafale F-5 program, expected to enter service around 2033, represents a significant technological advancement, incorporating next-generation systems and integration with combat drones. However, without external funding, France now faces increased financial pressure and potential delays in development,